Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Come in over.
I'm here. Over there. Over.
I'm over it.
I'm
Good
over
morning.
it. Yeah. Good morning. How's it going?
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Goodness.
Good day.
Good longness.
Yeah,
No, that doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but I gave it you. I gave it you,
You're
sir.
you're just patronising me.
Just patronising you, sir. It could have gone either way. That's the beauty of these Scottish
You understand it and I don't.
phrases. Never. Well, I don't quite understand it. I guess it's just guesswork.
Anyway, it's the Benji and Nick Show. He's Benji, I'm Nick. What do we do, Benji?
We talk about cult telly. We talk about old TV from the good olden days. TV, some obscure, some very popular, some not heard of, some very much heard of. We talk about it. We give opinion on what we think of it. We just riff and jam it. We could talk about anything, and that's what makes it so fun.
Yep.
What are we talking about today, Nick?
Well, what's coming up, we're going to remind you of some competitions, and then we'll be talking about what we've been watching on TV, and we'll be giving you listeners' emails. Plus, we'll call Jamie Anderson if he's in. Well, we'll call him even if he's not in.
We'll call him Jamie, and we'll see. But the main thing, that is our menu, and that is what we're serving up today. And yeah, exciting stuff. Love these podcasts. It's always interesting to see what's been going on in our lives. This is less of a review and more of a riff and a jam in it. So let's crack right on here with the competitions. Nick, do you want to fire us off with this first one?
There are two competitions. We have one going with the Unmutual, and well, you'll hear about that in a minute, and also the Tripods competition. The Tripods. Anyway, this one is from Rick Davey of the Unmutual. Playboy Spies and Private Eyes, inspired by ITC, is an anthology book written by many writers who each explain their love of an ITC action-adventure show and how the show has touched their lives. Shows include The Prisoner, The Saint, The Persuaders, Department S, The Invisible Man, and many more. The book was published in 2017 and is in aid of the Born Free Foundation. Born Free.
Born free, bing bong.
To win a copy of the book, email podcast@nicholasbriggs.com with the answer to the following question. Which of the following shows is not, NOT in capitals, an ITC show? Danger Man, The Avengers, The Adventurer, The Champions. Please note, anyone who enters the competition but doesn't win can have a 50% discount when they buy the book from Coit Media Limited website. Coit is spelled Q-U-O-I-T. So there. All entrants will be emailed an exclusive Benji and Nick Show link to purchase at this discount. That's pretty good, isn't it? The closing date, which is, we didn't tell you last time we mentioned it, is Friday the 17th of May, so you've still got plenty of time. The Tripods competition, want to tell us about that?
I'd love to tell you about the Tripods competition, even if it is sad that you feel the need to give away your copy of the Tripods. So,
get it out!
Because Nick wants to get it out of his house, you have a chance to win it, and I would thoroughly recommend you do so. So if you want to win Nick's Unwanted Tripods DVD box set, all you have to do, essentially, is name the cocktail that myself, Jamie and Nick attempted to make in the Dining Experience podcast just a few weeks back. Just the name of the podcast, the name of the cocktail, simples, no problems, and all you need to do is send that to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com with the subject line drinkies. There we go. So the closing date for that one is the 17th of May as well. You got to be in it to win it, and who doesn't want to have a great double whammy, both series of the Tripods with special features, plus the music suite for the unmade third series. Very good.
I don't want to have it.
You don't want to have it? I do, and I have.
My loss is someone else's gain.
Very much so. But yeah, so there we go. Two funky competitions there. Which, so much choice, so much going on. You can't say it ain't Christmas, because it ain't.
Thank you, Benji. Listen, what have we been watching on TV at the moment?
Interesting thing. Well, I've So I've not been watching a great deal, mainly because I've it's been bank holiday and I've been away and doing stuff. I did sit down and watch Kelly's Heroes because...
Oh, yes, I saw it. You messaged me about that.
Oh, I love it.
You Messerschmitted me about that.
I Messerschmitted you that. I Messerschmitted you this, yes. I love that film so much. I've seen it a million times, and it's still...
It's a war movie.
It's a war movie made in 1970, I think, with Teddy Savalas, Clint Eastwood, and Donald Sutherland.
You didn't say Teddy Savalas, did you?
Sorry. Yes, I did. I think I did. You got... Sorry.
Maybe that's the connection here that I misheard you. Telly Savalas.
Yes, it is. Good old Teddy.
That's a completely different character, isn't it? Hello, my name's Teddy Savalas.
Really lovable bloke. Teddy Savalas here. And really nice,
Telly Savalas.
Telly Savalas, famous
for being bald.
Bald, Blofeld. Just want to double check this
And
is made in 1970. I
would say 69.
It is 70. Nope.
Oh.
Kelly's Heroes 1970.
I bet they started it in 69 though.
Yeah, they would have done, wouldn't they? Got Don Rickles in it as well. Nah, damn Rickles. Maybe he's a Republican. Great guy.
I don't know Don Rickles.
Oh, he's got the best voice ever. He plays the character in it called Crap Game. It was, why you keep saying that? Why you keep doing that, you strange, crazy guy? But
what else has he done?
He has been, I think he was in Toy Story, famous for one of the characters in that. He's like a really well-known voice. Let's have a look. Dan Rickles. Oh, why don't we make a deal? A deal. Kelly's Heroes, Casino, Toy Story, Zookeeper, loads of Toy Story work. Tales from the Crypt.
All right, great voice man.
A real voice man, yeah. Gilligan's Island. The Beverly Hillbillies, the Munsters, Dick Van Dyke Show, Addams Family.
The Dick Van Dyke Show. Well,
all the Wagon Train,
say?
Twilight Zone. He's been quite a few, like the old classic
just
things.
All that. Yeah.
But Kelly's Heroes is a great film because it's a sort of semi-serious film about a group of US soldiers who basically decide to go off-grid, and instead of fight the war, they decide that they've discovered a secret stash of Nazi gold in a bank, and so they all decide that instead of fighting the Germans, that they'll just sneak in, get the gold, and be rich after the war. So that's their idea. But what makes
sorry, go on.
As I say, what makes it particularly funny is it riffs on what's going on at the time with the hippie movement that's going in place. So when you've got Donald Sutherland there, he plays this character called Oddball, who is incredibly sort of he's a real hippie and he's laid back, like what are you doing here? And he says, hey man, just eating some cheese, drinking some wine, catching some rays, man. I said, why aren't you in the tank? Hey man, you look, they're broken, I only drive them, I don't know what makes them work, man, Hey baby, he's just so laid back,
completely
and
anachronistic. They've just inserted a 1960s hippie into a Second World War movie, haven't they? Yeah.
Oh, but it's brilliant. Like these tanks are the fastest tanks in the whole of the war. They go just as fast forward as they go backwards. We like to think that we can get out of trouble just as quickly as we got into it. A real old hippie.
Don't they fire shells full of rainbow paint?
It makes pretty pictures, man. We play music, very loud music, sort of calms us down. They're really a bunch of this ragtag bunch of old hippies who just sort of go. But it all works because it's so. It's not like a comedy, but it's sort of silly and fun.
Yes,
but has the high stakes at the same time.
I want to watch it again right now. I have it on DVD.
Well, keep it on DVD because this is what I was going to say. I have it on DVD and Blu-ray, right?
There's a sound problem, isn't there?
There is. I think I've mentioned this before. Yeah, the sound on the Blu-ray is shocking transfer compared to the DVD one. So you're far better off getting it on DVD.
Well, I've only just recently bought a Blu-ray drive, so I don't have many Blu-rays anyway.
It's one of those ones that looks great in HD, but the sound just doesn't cut it. Maybe they've re-released it since then. I don't know. But it's a great film. It's a really fun war film.
Who plays Kelly?
Kelly is Clint Eastwood.
Of course it is.
Clint Eastwood, yeah. Gotta get the gold. There's a great bit in it where they do a sort of they pay homage to the old Western films.
Yeah.
So Telly, Clint, and Donald all stand in front of this tiger tank, and they got all the music, and it's really it's very cleverly done. It's just a real fun film.
It's just so of its time, isn't it? And it's beautiful. Yeah.
It's the type of film you could never make it again. It would never. If you remade it now, for example, it would not work.
There'd be no point, would there?
There'd be no point, exactly. But it's a great film. It's beautifully made. The setting, all the France, all the French, it's just brilliant. It's really good. So that's what I watched, and thoroughly recommend it. If you like if it's a good Sunday film, like a good lazy day, shove it on the telly, relax, put your feet up, and listen to Dan Rickles talking like this all the time. A deal. So that's it. I can't think of anything else I've particularly been watching. I went go-karting yesterday, though. That was quite fun.
Yeah.
That was... I didn't think I'd like it, Nick. And I was a bit sort of... I'm not one for adrenaline rushes, going fast and hurling myself around the place. I don't really do that. But I have to admit, I did really like it. You sit in that car, you suddenly hear The Chain by Fleetwood Mac in your head, doom, doo, 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 doo. Then bang, you're off. And it was really, really good fun. I was sort of really got into it. Going around all the corners and blasting around the track. So put on that helmet. I'm like Damon Hill. So that's why I've not been watching a lot of stuff, because I've been away and I've been karting around. So Nick, it's your turn. What have you been watching?
Well, as you know, I've been watching Warship, which is also on the title of this podcast. I remember it. Well, listen, I'll just read out the Wikipedia thing. Warship is a popular British television drama series produced by the BBC between 1973 and 1977. I love this random fact. It was also subtitled into Dutch and broadcast in the Netherlands as Alle Hens aan Dek, all hands on deck.
I wish it had just been called that.
It's not all hands on ants, but all hands on deck.
Hey!
4 series were produced with 45 episodes made in total, and they were actually hour-long episodes, and it enjoyed popularity in Britain, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. The series dealt with life on board a Royal Navy warship, the fictional HMS Hero. It was mainly filmed aboard the Leander-class frigate HMS Phoebe, just in case you wanted to know that, folks. So fascinating. I remember it from the time because I would watch it off and on, but it was slightly too old for me and slightly too staid. It was very much a grown-ups drama, you know what I mean? Very much, you've heard this phrase from me so many times, typical BBC drama of the day, studio-bound, with filmed inserts. Quite a lot of film stuff. They had full cooperation of the Navy in a kind of Sea Devils way. And so they did a lot of filming actually, on the ship and of the ship doing stuff. All sorts of spectacular things. Submarines they have and helicopters. When it's at its best, it's just about the characters on the ship. There are a few duff episodes that nearly put me off it. I bought the first 2 series on DVD. That appears to be the only ones available on DVD, unless anyone can tell me otherwise. They only seem to have released 2, and I think there's a cast change later on. But Donald Burton stars as Commander Mark Niles, high-flying young officer in the first 2 series. Later on, Brian Marshall came along, who I think was in that New Scotland Yard episode we watched a while back, wasn't he? He was the policeman who got into a bit of a fracas. Yes, I remember Brian Marshall being in it now. Yeah. I hope those episodes do come out on DVD or are available somewhere. But I thoroughly recommend it. It's good old-fashioned, very old-fashioned TV drama. It's notable for its spectacular misuse of bad stock music incongruously. I would say in the episodes I've seen so far, and I've seen the whole of the first series and the first couple of episodes of the second series, the percentage of stock music used in it is about 0.5.
Oh, blimey.
But occasionally a director obviously thinks this bit needs some music, and the music is just completely wrong. It's like it's a lot of it's a bit like that music that you and I have recently bought. Some 1970s music.
Bombastic 70s music.
Yeah, it's a and there's this whole fuel transfer thing going on between a fueling ship and HMS Hero. And it's a tense situation, and it sounds like the music for some sort of COD Monty Python travelogue commercial thing. It's just nonsense. And also, you know what they did with stock music in those days on that kind of production, they always put it too low in the mix, so it sounds a bit like it's just on someone's radio as opposed to being the music of the scene. They're a bit too tentative to actually make the choice of the music and stick it high in the mix. There are 2 episodes, I think it's in the second series, the first 2 episodes of the second series is a 2-parter.
I love it when they sometimes change the format like that and shake it up.
And they don't call
bit.
it part 1 and part 2. They just give them 2 different titles in a Russell T Davies Doctor Who sort of way.
Fair play.
And Michael Cochrane is in it, who I've worked with many times. And he's so young, bless him. He's playing a 23-year-old Royal Marines lieutenant. And the way they set the episode up, it's like war. There's a war going on. And it seems that the Soviet Union have invaded the north of Norway, and they're having to go in and I thought, wow, this is incredible. But it's really interesting that they do that. I'm spoiling it for you now, but that's what life's all about.
That is what life
secrets.
is all about.
The mission goes wrong. Michael Cochrane has to go ashore with 4 other men to blow up a radar station. The mission goes wrong, and he gets captured and interrogated by the... It has to happen that way. You can't be interrogated before you're captured. That'd be hilarious, isn't it? You're just about to do something and the enemy turn up, and rather than point a gun at you, they go, "What are you doing here? What is your name?" You say, "No, don't you just take me to prison first, and then you do the interrogation later." "Oh yes,
sorry, never mind."
But of course, anyway, he's got a famous father who was a real famous general, this Michael Cochrane character, and the interrogator really plays on him sort of being a failure, and he goes completely berserk and karate chops the guy in the chest and kills him stone cold dead.
Christ.
It is at this point you discover it's only an exercise.
Oh.
So he has killed a Norwegian army officer
for no reason. And
no.
Oh no. I'm sure it happens though. I'm sure things like that do happen.
Yeah. So I mean it's really interesting. So the second episode is him being court-martialed.
Oh, what I liked, there's a bit of a Star Trek sort of court-martial. Do you know the episode with Spock where he's possibly where Kirk's possibly facing a court-martial?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why that came into my head. It just did.
Because it's called court-martial, isn't it?
It must be. I suppose it must be.
I don't know whether it is actually. Now you've got me doubting myself.
Well,
anyway,
I've got some interesting facts about Warship for you, Nick.
Oh, is it about the theme tune?
It's not about the theme tune. It's 2 separate things. So firstly, in answer to is Series 3 available? Series 3 won't be released at all because one of the cast or crew have refused permission to release it. So it is set to never be released until they die. Until they die, I suppose.
That's why Day of the Triffids wasn't released for years and years, the BBC Day of the Triffids, because that guy from 2.5 Children, who gives a terrible performance in it, did not want it released because he gives a terrible performance in it.
Because he was dreadful in it, to put it lightly.
So the moment he was dead, the BBC went, I'm releasing that, thank you very much.
Bye, thank you very much.
Artists don't have that right now to block releases, but they would have done.
They would have done then, and of course I suppose people didn't really anticipate it, did they, in the same way of how things now get released all the time.
I thought you were going to say it's not being released because all the cast black up or something.
No, I'm sure. There's not the black and white minstrel show, is it?
I was going to say, yeah, they have the black and white minstrel show on board as entertainment at the end of every episode. Like
God. Singing the
Camberwick
theme
Green
tune.
or Trumpton, where they had the band on at the end. They said, and now it's time for the black and white minstrel show down.
No, don't do it. Stop. The other thing I was going to say is that HMS Phoebe
Yes.
actually had quite a long life in terms for a ship. Anyway, it was laid down and launched in 1964, and it was decommissioned in 1991.
Wow.
So it lasted for quite a long time. It was eventually scrapped in 92. So
1991, which I accused 1991 of being a really uninteresting year, in which you were born.
In which
And
I was
there's an
born.
email either this week or in a couple of weeks' time criticising me for that, naming all the things that happened in 1991.
Excellent. Thanks for the person that stuck up for my year. Thank
I
you
think it's
very
Adam
much.
Graham. Yeah,
Good lad. Good lad.
Oh, by the way, the opening music and closing music of the series was taken from a march called Warship, composed for the series by Anthony Isaac. He also did the Survivors theme, didn't he?
I think so. Let me double check.
The theme was played by the band of the Royal Marines, Deal, conducted by Lieutenant Colonel Paul Neville, MVO FRAM RM. The march is still played by Royal Marine bands. The theme influenced the
Wow.
opening bars of the 2010 March Scrap Iron Flotilla, composed by leading seaman Martin Hancock of the Royal Australian Navy Band. I love Wikipedia. But yeah, listen to the theme now and you'll see why the Royal Navy still play it. Can you find it anywhere?
I can find it, yeah.
The opening sequence has some fantastic footage of HMS Phoebe ploughing through waves, and the first crash of the theme comes as the bow goes under the water.
Oh, I've just got to that bit. Bang,
Yeah.
comes out again.
Yeah.
Warship.
Da, 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 da. It starts a bit like Thunderbirds, doesn't it? It sort of goes dum, 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 dum. Always worth a watch just for the theme tune, I feel.
That looks quite good fun, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Look at it go. What, really going for it, isn't it? The waves. Blimey.
I know.
We want to be on that.
Everyone inside is literally throwing up.
It's like on the way back from I went from Dunkirk to Dover on the way back
Yes.
from Germany, and it was so choppy. The water was really windy.
Bit choppy, was it, number one?
Very choppy, number two. It was. Don't know what I'm doing there.
You're supposed to call me captain, not number two. That's just rude.
That's just. Yeah, I'm not going to say it. But it was really like one of those things. It was not a nice, especially when you've been driving in the car for about 9 hours. It was very much a blimey. Nope.
I've told you about me and seasickness. I'm mostly absolutely fine, but then if the ship moves in a certain way, it's like a switch in me, and my whole body, I just become completely disorientated, and within seconds I go pale and green.
Oh,
within
no.
seconds it's the sick bag. Yeah, it happened when we went over to the Channel Islands a couple of years ago, and it was very choppy, but I was absolutely fine. And then the captain came on and said, I'm altering course just to get out of the way of this chop. Lamb chop.
Probably wise. This lamb chop.
Yeah, but the
floating in
moment he
sea.
did it, the sway of the boat changed direction, which was a sort of like a counterintuitive rather than, it was just odd. And the moment it happened, Steph just looked at me and my colour just changed, and I just spent the next half hour heaving into a small paper bag.
Oh God!
It was so humiliating. But I just couldn't do it. It just, you know what I mean? It was just like suddenly, it's like you're standing still and suddenly you're heading down a slide and you didn't even know there was a slide there, and you're just heading towards sickness. You think, oh my God, how could this happen so quickly? Same thing happened to me with Ben's virtual reality on
VR,
the
yeah,
PlayStation.
that's very common. It's all.
The
I always
moment the
find
whole
it.
picture moved,
Yep.
I was gone.
That's a very common thing, and they remedy that with a teleporting function now. That you can aim your handset, click the button, and it whizzes you there. So it doesn't move; it just goes blacks and goes fades to black and opens up quickly again, and you don't suffer it. Because I'm the same. I hate that when the whole picture moves. It's horrible. It's all right if I'm flying in my planes on there. The cockpit is static and steady. but the out through the windows moves, I'm totally fine.
I
But
thought for a moment you were suggesting that in order to solve seasickness, they've invented teleporting.
no, but I wish they had. Oh, can you imagine
Well,
that?
this is the captain speaking. We hear that down on B deck, several people are being sick, so we're activating the teleporter now. And you can just go straight to the Channel Islands instead of going on a ship.
for hours. But, it's
Actually, if you've got a teleporter, why are we bothering to go in a ship? Oh, never thought of that. Oh, good idea. Oh, I suppose I'm out of a
decommission
job
the ship, tear it apart, set it to scrap. We're all going to teleport there, be home in time for lunch. But yeah, I'd love. One thing I do love about these old ships is like not so much on the DFDS ferries that we get from Dover to Dunkirk, but certainly on the P&O Dover to Calais ones. They're these really old ships. You get like the Pride of Canterbury and the Pride of Britain, I think, and there's the Spirit of Britain and the Spirit of France. These old ships that are like, if you explore a little bit, you can see that apart from like where they've sort of made the interiors look modern, you turn a corner and then it's just like the 60s, like all rusty old bulkheads and lifeboats that look like they've never been used.
Yeah.
It's fascinating though.
Some more, in inverted commas, interesting things about Warship is that I said to my old mate Tim from Southampton, I come from that area, I was chatting to him last night about Warship. I said one of the most interesting things is that it's every actor who appeared in Doctor Who in the 70s turns up in it. So you go, oh, there's so-and-so from Mask of Mandragora, and oh god, that's that bloke who played the guard in Hand of Fear, and there's just they're all regular TV actors from the time, and they are all over it. They are in every bit of it. Also the writers, Robert Holmes, I nearly said Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes,
Robert Holmes, he's written at least one of the episodes. Mervyn Haseman,
Yep,
has written an episode, a very good episode indeed. Actually, that was a standout one. And also the producer is Anthony Coburn, who...
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah? I think it's the same Anthony Coburn.
Surely it must be.
A series directed by Michael E. Bryant, among others. We know Michael E. Bryant for his work on Death to the Daleks. Yeah?
Which we're covering next week, aren't we? The final episode of our commentary.
Dun, dun, dun. And here's just something, this podcast has descended into me just reading from Wikipedia. In 1975, the BBC's children's television programme Blue Peter included a feature about the filming of Warship at Plymouth Dockyard aboard HMS Deny, because it wasn't always aboard Phoebe, but quite a lot of it was. The item was presented by Leslie Judd. Did she used to be in Pan's People or something?
Leslie Judd.
Yeah. The next year, future Blue Peter presenter Peter Duncan played a major role in the episode All of One Company. 6 episodes of Warship were filmed aboard HMS Deny around that time.
She was in a one-off. She did a one-off appearance with Pan's People.
Oh, right. Deny, is it Danae? Deny?
But Warship has an almost a similar show, didn't it, later on in the 80s, I think, called Squadron, focused around the RAF.
Oh, really?
About early 80s, I think, like 81, 82.
Well, the plan, they said, was to do for the Navy what Z-Cars had done for the police. So presumably they decided to do that for the Air Force as well.
Like what London's Burning did for the fire brigade.
The interesting thing about Warship is, though, no one remembers it, do they?
It's like all these things, though. They don't. If it doesn't get publicity, or if it's not re-released or re-shown on telly, people do forget about it.
It's dated. It's dated. It hasn't survived the journey of time,
which is sad, really. But
that's what this podcast is for.
For things that, like us, we have not survived the transition of time itself. But yeah,
my wife says that to me every morning.
But interesting enough, it's a BBC series as well.
Yeah, I know. I said that.
So yeah, which is interesting that it hasn't sort of been re-shown or anything, because it's the type of thing you could put it on a Sunday afternoon but
clearly this actor who's objecting
doesn't like it.
I mean, is it an actor who's objecting?
I don't know. It just said member of the sorry, I'm yawning. I was just stretched at the time. A member of the cast or crew. And that's all it says. And it was just somebody's comment that said that's what they've heard, which is why.
Wow.
So, who knows, Nick? Who knows?
Well, it can't be the producers because they've let the other. But it says only Series 3, so what about Series 4?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose you wouldn't release Series 4 if you don't have Series 3, otherwise people would get confused, wouldn't they?
There are no real continuing storylines. It's very much episode of the week.
Yeah, well, who knows? I'm not the guy in charge.
There are a couple of threads. The Master at Arms is going to leave and then isn't, and something or other. So, but yeah, wow, goodness me. That's a shame. That's a real shame. I'm going to have to raid the archives and steal it.
Yeah, why not? Maybe it's on...
That person is destroying my fun!
You swine!
I don't care what ridiculous personal reasons you've got for not earning royalties from this. Fool! Just because you're embarrassed about your bad acting. Listen, there's loads of bad acting in Warship. I mean, this is the thing with BBC productions at that time. You get leading actors who are great, and then there's this sort of substrata of really mediocre performances. The episodes I've seen, there's some terrible below deck scenes with really awful acting. I just love it. It's just so bad. It's delightful.
Well, sometimes it's comforting.
And none of those people objected. What's the matter with you? Just, fess up. You were all a bit rubbish, but...
But it's fine. Don't worry about it. Chill out, man.
It's like even I, Claudius, has got rubbish acting in it. All the leading characters are brilliant, but, a lot of the supporting performances are risible. Anyway... just before we stop talking about what we've been watching on TV, just wanted to mention Star Trek Discovery, which of course I've seen the finale of now, and it is mind-blowingly amazing. Jamie Anderson texted me about it and said, yeah, but what I didn't understand about it was ... big question about the plot. He just asked for an explanation. I said, I don't know, I just enjoyed it. And that's the funny thing, isn't it? We're very finicky about our Doctor Who because we're big Doctor Who fans, but when it comes to Star Trek, I'm a Star Trek fan, but I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not card carrying. I'm not, so I just kind of watch it and love it. I don't really mind. And I say, I've no idea what the answer to your question is, but I just was so invested in the characters, and it's beautiful, beautiful stuff.
I think there are two ways to view things, aren't there really? You can look at something and pull it apart for whatever reason, or you can just enjoy it for what it is and not think too much about it, really. But yeah,
that's great. It's great.
I need to catch up on it all. I really do. Time though.
And the actor who plays the lead, who plays the character of Michael Burnham, I can't remember what her name is.
She's amazing.
She's startlingly brilliant. Also, the chap, what's his name? I can't remember his name either, who plays Captain Pike, is actually really top dollar. He's great. And everyone's saying, come on, we want a series with the Enterprise with Captain Pike and all that.
Sonequa Martin Green.
Pardon?
Sonequa Martin Green plays Michael Burnham.
Sorry, your signal broke up when you said that. And it just sounded like a random collection of syllables.
Michael Burnham was my favourite character in it. Up until the point where I watched it, anyway.
Yeah. Oh no, she continues to it. She is the lead.
Yeah.
She's. It's about her largely, even though it's all about all the other characters. It's an ensemble piece, but she is the driving force. It's a great finale. This second series has been 3 times as good. That's a mathematical certainty as the first series. Just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, should we go on to the email?
Well, I think it would be rude not to.
Do you want to do the first one?
I'd love to do it, yes. Here we go. Here we go. So this, the title of this message is The Jensen...
Was that the new theme tune to the email section? You going...
That was the
emails.
That was the load up the script tab because I was looking at Star Trek things. So the title of this one is The Jensen Code Ghost. Date is the 19th of the 4th, 2019, sent at 12:27, and this is from Chris Garrard. Hi Nick and Benji. I can't begin to tell you how much I enjoy your podcast every week, so I won't. Oh. Okay. Oh. Fair play. However, I thought you might be interested in the following attached photos.
I sent these to you, didn't I?
Yes, you did, yeah. They were taken by a friend who recently visited the Clearwell Caves in Colford, where, as you know, the Kid Jensen Code was filmed in 1973. They refer to a mysterious old man who helped set up some difficult shots during filming. Keep up the splendid work, gents. Best wishes, Chris Garrard. Get Outlook for Android (1).
No. Have you got the photo to hand?
Yes, I have. I can read out what is on the placard as well. It's very interesting. So I'll read this out for all of you listeners here. So it says here, The Old Man, it's called. There have been many mysterious sightings of an old miner underground here. The miners knew him as the Old Mon. I'm not going to begin to speak Welsh, but you get the idea. In 1973, whilst filming for a television series called The Jensen Code, technicians needed to take electrical cables deeper into the mine to power their cameras and lights. It turned out that they did not have enough cable to reach the place they wanted. Their difficulty was miraculously overcome, however, when an old miner appeared and suggested a more difficult but shorter route for the cables. This alternative route proved ideal. The technicians went on to thank the old fellow, but he'd gone. No one knew who he was. As you walk through the mine, you may feel that someone is watching you. Before you leave, take a quick glance behind you, and you too may have a fleeting glimpse of the Old Mon.
I got real chills with the way you read that, actually. I'm sort of looking over my shoulder, even though I'm not in a mine.
Even the old shed. Scary things like that do happen. They do say They do say that these locations have a certain spooky quality to them. But you do hear of tales of people like that who encounter figures who give them advice or say things, and then it helps them, or they escape some horrible danger or whatever. Like, I remember some woman on a program, she was on a flight, and somebody walked over and said, I think you should move seats. I think that I get the sense there's a bit of a problem with where you're sitting. And for some reason she said okay, moved, and then later on in the flight, they crashed, and it was that seat where the big hole in the side of the plane.
That's
happened.
What's known as an apocryphal story. It's an urban myth, it's.
I'm sure it is.
There's a really interesting tale about the filming of Revenge of the Cybermen in Cheddar Gorge, Wookiee Hole, rather, and because they were looking for to make the Vogan masks more convincing, and this person suggested an alteration to the masks to make them better, but when they went back to find out the details of it, the person had disappeared, which is why the masks are rubbish.
Oh,
I just made that up.
I was going to say, I thought at the end, here we go. It is true, they are terrible masks. Terrible, but people die in caves.
Yes, they all speak like this through the masks. I love it. Anyway, we must do a commentary of Revenge of the Cybermen, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely
also
one.
In the Jensen Code, the old Mon actually was there to give acting lessons, but unfortunately didn't turn up on the day, which is why some of the performances are a bit ropey.
Oh, he's out to get him today.
I love the Jensen Code. I loved it. Anyway, here's another one. Original message. Hello, you're there as well. What's this? It was sent on the 17th of April at 8:30 in the evening by Steve Craddock. Hey chaps, despite listening for some time to the Big Finish podcast, I didn't realise that you had this parallel existence. I discovered it by accident last week. I'm not even sure how. Maybe the old Mon from the cave told you. But I am busy catching up on this marvellous runaway train of conversations about many topics familiar to me, being of an age slightly ahead of Mr. B. Gosh, can anyone be that old? Are you the old mon? Apologies if this is a bit long, but ... Listen, we're all about long emails here. In a series of extraordinary serendipitous moments, catching up on this well of recent podcasts, I too very recently bought the Armchair Cinema DVD from the wonderful network on air, specially to watch Regan. There you go. One of the Kindle deals of the day today is Fatherland. I'm currently reading Munich, which has the same red page edging, so I snapped it up upon your recommendation. Yes, I fondly remember that episode of Twilight Zone with Bill Shatner. How about his starring role in Police Squad? In Collar! Did you ever see that?
No.
You've never seen Police Squad?
I've never seen Police Squad, no way.
It's what the Naked Gun movies came from.
Oh, blimey. Oh, that would be fun then.
And Bill Shatner was one of the guests. What they always used to do was say, and because it was like a Quinn Martin production. Like, did you
yeah, like hammy sort of.
Yeah, the voiceover, yeah. And they always do this thing... guest starring, and then the guest star comes on and immediately gets killed. And I think William Shatner was one. So they always have a notable guest star in every episode, but they just get killed in the starting sequence. And then when they name the episode, if the episode was Flight of Terror, the caption comes up saying Flight of Terror, and they say tonight's episode, The Mysterious Shed. It's never the title that's on the screen. Anyway, back to Steve's email. A friend of mine recently loaned me the Sapphire and Steel set because I said I'd never got round to watching it. Now I know what to expect. Okay. I'm with Benji about tripods. I did enjoy it back in the day and was very disappointed that they never made the third series. Well, there you are. You and Steve, Benji, kissing in a tree.
A member of my gang. A member of my gang.
It never worried me about the War of the Worlds reference, for the same reason Benji said. The tripods were kind of incidental, and despite my being a huge fan of HG's book, my pre-teen years were lived just 5 minutes walk from Horsell Common, which is where the Martians landed in the book. I used to walk around trying to imagine where the book's action had been set. Yeah, I bought a map when I was writing the adaptation, so I could sort of trace where it was all meant to be happening. And at night, lying in bed, I could occasionally see sparks from the railway line in the distance and used to imagine that the Martians had arrived. I was very excited to get the BF release, which I felt did it great justice. Steve, you're now my favourite. Because I got an award for it. Shut up. As a piece of trivia, Woking Shopping Centre has a wonderful tripod and capsule sculpture. It does. Yeah, have you seen it?
Yeah, I've looked at the pictures. Really cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Really cool. Yeah.
I've seen it. I think I might have even touched it, and was arrested by a Martian. Many other things have struck chords on the way through, but forgotten as I have been listening to them one after another this week and enjoying them hugely. Because you must be so sick of the sound of us. Your camaraderie is a joy to hear, and I'm very pleased to have discovered this podcast. Keep up the excellent work. Kind regards, Steve. P.S. Nick, you just have to approach your issue with the title Death to the Daleks by doing it in character and you'll be fine. It's true, because I keep going Death to the Daleks. Death to the Daleks.
Yeah,
PPS. Network on Air do some fabulous things, such as the Century 21 box set a couple of years ago and the remastered The Prisoner, and one I've managed to not revisit, On the Buses. Though I do remember the horror Blakey only too well. I seem to remember seeing him one time in a straight role and being quite impressed. PPPS, a brave experiment with the Curry podcast. A wonderful evening of madness. Thank you. I would just say at this point that we're going to be reading out some emails in the next podcast as well. And because of the way I'm approaching them, we sort of go back in time. So the ones next week will be even older than the ones this week. But I will get it right eventually.
One saying, I just can't believe the abdication of so-and-so, the king.
Such a tragedy about the Titanic.
Have you heard they invented the wheel last week? I mean, blimey. Well, we got another email here. Or are we going to do it in the next podcast?
No, we're going to do it here.
Cool. This one's from Thomas Hodden, our good pal, always sending in witty emails from across the plains of time. This was sent at 8:15 on the 14th of the 4th, 2019. Chaps! Wonderful news. The plans for the summer season of Benji and Nick's Radio Roadshow are moving afoot, with one or two minor hiccups, but with some good old-fashioned pluck and ingenuity, I think we might just make this work. First and most importantly, I think we can still advertise the show as filmed at Britain's best sci-fi conventions, as long as we don't advertise which conventions, so I can still buy tickets. None of our star interviewees have agreed, and their solicitors have made it clear to me how very much they don't agree to appear in the show, but I have done some maths, and if I assume that I'm allowed to ask one question every time I queue up for an autograph and invest in some good quality fake moustaches, we might just be able to scrape something together. Like you're thinking, sir. On the slightly more disappointing note, Health and Safety had advised that I probably shouldn't adapt a t-shirt cannon to fire Benji and Nick branded pens, pin badges and shot glasses into the audience, but did suggest selling the adapted cannon to the MOD, which might balance the budget somewhat. Ministry of Defence, for those who don't know. Benji's musical showcase is a go as a feature, but due to budget restraints, we had to be a little more modest with our ambitions for the backing dancers. I couldn't afford Pan's people, but apparently a fair few of the Tomorrow people are game to try. They're pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah,
it's fun. They'll never notice, sir. The Benji and Nick bus was a little more expensive than we expected, but I think we can just about afford it. If Nick's willing to charge people for selfies, increasing the cost if people want to include a goodness or a Loch Ness speech bubble in the photo, and increasing the cost again if they want Nick to let them win. And Nick, this time you will have to let them win.
Oh.
I hope this helps with your plans. Yours as always, T.E. Hodden, sent from my nostalgic glow. Wonderful work there, sir. Always such a pleasure to hear an email from you.
Cheer us up.
So if you're looking to get in on the action, because we love to hear from you, it's so easy. All you need to do, send an email to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. Simples, and we might read it out. You never know.
Should we see if we can raise Jamie Anderson? I don't hold out much hope.
Raise him from the ground.
Hello, you're on the podcast, the Benji and Nick Show.
Briggs, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jamie?
It's been ages.
I know, there have been several podcasts without you. A lot of podcasts with me just phoning you and no one picking up.
Oh, okay, well, as long as you've tried, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Good. And so what are you doing?
Well, we've just talked about some TV that we've been watching recently and done some emails.
Great. And what TV was it? Sorry, obviously I haven't heard because I wasn't there the rest of the time.
Warship.
No.
And Kelly's Heroes.
No.
Oh.
And
Sounds like you're making things up now.
just saying words.
Russell's Rhubarb.
Great show.
Snowplow.
And Star Trek Discovery.
Well, we've all been watching that, haven't we?
Benji hasn't.
Benji?
I'm sorry. I'll watch it in 25 years when it's a little bit older.
Perfect. When it's become a stone cold classic, perhaps.
And what was the question you asked me about it that I couldn't answer?
Oh, in case one of your listeners can answer it,
Yeah.
you mean? Because Benji won't be able to.
No.
Why is it that even though control is neutralised just before they go through the wormhole, they still go through the wormhole, even though the point of going through the wormhole was to get away from control? But if control's neutralised, they don't need to get away from control. So could somebody explain that, please, for me? Thank you.
I stopped listening during the question.
Yeah, so did I, actually. That's why I kept going on and on.
What was my answer? I said, I don't know. Immediately, I answered straight away. I don't know. Yes.
I don't know, but I enjoyed it. So.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I've got a question for Jamie if he's game.
I always look forward to Benji's questions.
So, what is the worst job you've ever had?
Is it working for Big Finish?
Oh, no, of course it's not. You know the worst. Well...
Oh, I do know the worst job. How are you going to explain this in a family
I'm going to go for a different worst job.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yeah,
Only because... So, when I was 17... I'd had some pub job work, and I got a new job at a new pub that had just opened, but it had like a weird high design style thing. They spent loads of money hiring a consultant who designed these weird uniforms.
Oh.
And the uniforms were a bit Star Trek-y, actually, except that they had a collar that came right up to your chin and then was cut off centre down to the point exactly midway between one's nipples, meaning that the collar kind of flapped away down to one side, exposing slightly more chest than I was comfortable with.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, and they had loads of other weird things you had to do, and like old ways they wanted you to serve food and drink and stuff. Anyway, needless to say, the business venture failed and the pub closed within a month because it was so ridiculous. But it was so horribly awkward, the whole thing, and the uniform especially, because you would just see customers sort of staring at your bare chest thinking, well, I'm not sure I'm hungry now.
Put you off your hot dog, wouldn't it?
Especially if it was a slightly hairy one.
Oh, it's the hairy hot dogs. That sounds like a Hanna-Barbera animation from the 1970s.
You've been watching that I haven't.
The hairy hot dogs.
Well, thank you for that rather disturbing anecdote. I mean, what kind of idiot wants people to dress like that? Well, Well,
if you're making a sci-fi TV show and you want some cool costumes, then fair enough, but not for pubs.
No, ridiculous. Well, Jamie, thanks for your contribution. We're actually recording 2 podcasts today, so we might phone you back in about half an hour's time.
And do I have to then pretend that I've not just spoken to you, or do you want me to be honest?
Just be honest, mate. We're always honest
Brilliant.
on this podcast.
Right, okay, well, I can't wait to speak to you again in a bit, maybe then.
Cheerio, then bye.
Ciao.
Thanks for having me, bye.
Madness, the madness. Thank you, Jamie. As always, a pleasure to hear from you, sir.
So, listen, just time to tease next week's podcast, which is we're going to give some more emails, slightly going further back in time for me to catch up with the ones we haven't read out. There's some corkers, right, corkers. Do keep them coming in to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. And we'll also, what will we also be doing, Benji?
We'll be doing the commentary for the final episode of Death to the Daleks, which will then nicely round up our first full commentary release, I suppose one could say.
It's only taken a year.
It's only taken a year, but so who knows what we might do next. Could be more Doctor Who, could be less Doctor Who, could be something completely different, could be Neighbours. You just don't know.
I want it to be Revenge of the Cybermen. Have you got any great objection to that?
I've got no great objection to that. It's a good story. It's not my favourite Cyberman story, I would say that, but I know it's one that you love, and anything on the Nerva Beacon makes me happy.
Oh, yeah. Well, we could do Ark in Space.
No, let's do Revenge of the Cybermen.
Revenge of the Cybermen's funnier, isn't it?
It's funnier. There's more to talk about than just...
You can't really laugh at Ark in Space. I'm just too moved by Ark in Space.
Yeah, and the only... there's maybe the Wirren is quite amusing. It's slithering around, and yeah... But,
I'm doing the actions here. It's very convincing.
Yeah, we just need you to freeze up and fall out of a cupboard now. But yeah, okay, Revenge of the Cybermen next then.
But anyway, Death of the Daleks will be next week.
D to the D.
Part 4. All right, so time to for me to say... I thought you were belching then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.